Alrighty, so recording start time
It is 10:45.
10:45. Interviewee is 22 years old. He lives in Albuquerque. He goes to the University of New Mexico. We are here at the LGBTQAI plus resource building, right? Here at UNM. Okay, so can you identify what your most significant struggle would be?
As like a queer person,
Mm-hmm.
um, significant struggle. I guess personal issues come to mind first, but obviously that's kind of like a very limited scope. So I think in the broader picture, probably just like finding acceptance from everybody, and not just like, oh, I accept you, not just like this tokenizing like, I can go on a rant, but like basically I guess when it comes to like, we live in a society where I think our needs have to be voted on, so I think getting acceptance from people with power
Mm.
to give us our rights, basically, like that's how we like have to get stuff and be seen as valid in our society. So I think that would be like one of the bigger issues.
Yeah, that kind of makes me sad to hear that.
Yeah.
Because it's a real thing.
Yeah, and this is just speaking from like a cis person. Um, like trans people are still treated like crap and stuff, and
Mhm.
like I think the focus should be more on them.
Yeah.
Now.
Okay. Thank you. Um, have you ever experienced any form of discrimination growing up? Um, I mean, before you answer that, when and how did you know that you were gay?
Mhm. So I guess I knew I was like gay when I was probably when I was like 6. I guess like I not to be like stereotypical, but like I always had like up until like middle school, I always had like, oh, from middle school up until now, I've always had like predominantly like feminine friends, just
Mhm.
because I was just more drawn to them because they're not like like traditionally they weren't like mean and they were more accepting.
Mhm.
But I had like, I guess I had guy friends when I was like younger who I just wanted to be friends with them. Like I got the friendship bracelets when I was like from kindergarten up until like maybe like elementary school,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden it just became like kind of weird to do that, and then that's when I started to feel like oppression from like, I guess, the predominantly male population in school.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started to drift more towards like feminine people because like they're more accepting.
Mhm.
But I guess, yeah, I came out to my parents when I was like when I was in 7th or 8th grade, so I must have been like 13,
Mhm.
and they were kind of like totally like, um, I guess they were unprepared, and they were just, my parents were very like, they didn't teach me anything about like queer stuff. It was very like, they weren't Bible thumpers, but they were very like, we have our beliefs, but they're just ignorant, I think.
Mhm.
I
Are
know.
they? What's your cultural background?
Um, Hispanic, raised in a Catholic household. That's pretty much it.
That's very hard because Hispanic culturally, because I'm Hispanic as well, and
Mhm.
I was raised Catholic, very strong
Yeah.
Catholic from the northern New
Oh, okay.
Mexico. So my mom still has her struggles with accepting the LGBT community,
Mhm.
um, growing up in that type of household is very, I could imagine, is very hard,
Mhm.
especially being
Yeah.
gay. So.
It wasn't like traditional. Like I had a very assimilated upbringing, so it
Mhm.
wasn't. I had like my house, for instance, like my parents knew Spanish. They didn't feel the need to for me to learn Spanish. So I grew up very assimilated. But like my extended family, I guess that's where I got my more cultural like influences from, or experiences.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so um, going back to that first question or that second question, so knowing that background of yours, thank you so much for sharing. Have you experienced any form of discrimination?
Discrimination, not so much. It's just a lot of ignorance. For instance, like early on it was family. They'd say a lot of really messy or inappropriate things.
Mm-hmm.
Not to discourage me or anything, not discourage me from being gay or anything, but like they just say a lot of like things. And then I guess in public, the only time I really like, for instance, someone like was, I guess, homophobic towards me was I was in Village Inn back in El Paso one time, and I was like dressed like pretty much how I am now, like shorts. It was like fall, and I was with my friend, and we were just sitting, and like a girl, it was me and like one of my female friends. We were sitting at Village Inn, and this guy like walks past our like booth, and he's like, "Fucking fags," and I was like, "What?" Like, and I was like, I don't know where, like, and I had a moment of like, I kind of stepped out of my body, and I was kind of like, I'm not even, like, and I'm not even, I don't have like a complex where I'm like, I don't, like, I'm like totally like, I'm pro like, I'll wear like paint my nails, and I won't have a problem with that in public.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I had a moment where I like stepped out of my like body, and I was like, I'm not even just like performatively feminine or like stereotypically gay. I'm literally just wearing like regular clothes, and this
Mm-hmm.
person just said that to me. Like, what is it about me that like
That says I'm
yeah.
gay, yeah.
And so is it just like my facial expressions or something, like mannerisms? But like, I don't know. It's just like, it really, like, that was the first time someone ever like said that to me in public, and I was like, oh my god. And I looked at my friend, and then they were like, oh my god, too.
Yeah.
And then like just like based on other people's experiences, I was always like, I would always tell myself like, if that ever happened, I would like call them out or something. But I was actually drawn back. Like, someone actually like it was like, I think it was 2017 when this happened. I was like, in 2017, marriage equality happened like 2 years prior.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I wonder, do you ever think back to that moment and say, what would have happened if I would have said something to that person? Do you think that there would have been some sort of like exchange in words or some sort of altercation?
no, I don't know. It's hard to say, because like, I don't know. You can't really say until it actually happened. If I were to go back, I don't know. Like, looking back, I think I would have just been like, I would have had the same like reacted the same way, just like taken aback, like someone actually said this to me.
I feel like,
And it was like in a very like usually you hear about like the stuff happening on the streets when you're walking by, like how they portray in movies or something. But this is like in a village in like
mm-hmm.
very like ordinary place.
You said that this was down in El Paso?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I haven't had any, other than that, like I've had a very like accepting like, experience for the most part.
That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you feel, I know you had expressed this a little bit at the beginning with the first question, but are there any unique needs to yours or others' particular culture that you feel their needs might be?
What do you mean?
So you had mentioned earlier that it's really hard to get politics. I mean, politics are one of the main issues that you would see the significant struggle. So I want to say it's pretty much the same question, like what are the needs that you feel that the LGBT community culture needs?
Wait. Are you asking like me critiquing the queer community or?
Yes, or however you want to interpret that question, because I don't.
Oh my god, I could go down the rabbit hole, I guess.
I don't really know how to interpret that question myself. So.
I feel like I don't know, I'm trying to be very like, I don't want to go too in depth where I get lost and I confuse myself, and I also don't want to like give too many words for you, but like, I guess it's kind of like living in two worlds, like two bubbles. Like, the queer community exists within this very, I don't want to use technical terms either. Like through, like since like society, like at least Western society, it's been very patriarchal, heteronormative, like very man-wife, very Christianic and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All those influences have kind of created like Western United States and all these like Western countries, and then like queer people still exist in that like world, but I don't want to do like this is like heteronormative like a bubble, but then the queer culture like isn't within it. But queer culture, I guess, is kind of like a, at least how I see is like critiquing and conforming, not conforming, but like working its way, creating something within what was already given, what was already made.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I guess critiquing it sometimes, like for instance, sometimes in the queer community, not sometimes, like this happens all the time, but like a lot of those influences like heteronormative like lifestyles or like Christianity or just like patriarchal masculine views infiltrate the queer community, and then it's has negative effects. So like hyper masculinity, which again not isn't just like a queer issue, it's like a very like it happens like this issue is like very prominent like in everyday life.
Mhm.
Or yeah, just like the whole idea like why do I like well when I was younger, like when marriage equality was happening, it's like, yeah, marriage equality, we can get married and stuff. But like now it's kind of like it's a very like capitalist, I don't know, just me thinking about it. Like why do we have to conform to like this very like stereotypical like man-wife relationship living in the suburbs? Like why do we have to conform to that?
Yeah, that makes sense. I've never actually heard that before, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, like why can't we, I mean like, what if I don't wanna get married, but like I still wanna have the option to, but I shouldn't wanna like, oh, have to do this whole like, oh, get married, like this very like masculine husband, or like have kids, why picket fence in the suburbs, and then, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
I guess that's as far as I really wanna go because I'll confuse myself.
No, I think that's great. Thank you. I'll probably replay this and think back and really think about what you're saying because I mean, I can't say I necessarily get it because I've never been in that position before. But yeah, I'm it put some light bulbs in my head. So last question from hers, like last formal question. How do you experience yourself to the majority of culture? Does that make sense? Like, how do you experience yourself in relation to the majority culture? There we go.
I guess majority culture, I don't know, like, there's like different levels of culture, I think. So like, there's like United States, and then there's like Albuquerque, and then also like just like, I guess how, like spaces that I can interact in. So I feel more comfortable, or I feel like I could be more my authentic self when I'm with like-minded, like brown queer people, because I feel like we share the same experiences and we just like get together better. There's like that common vibe, for lack of a better word.
I like that you use the word authentic self. That's what we used last week in our class. I went over sexism, that was my thing. And we mainly talked about, you know, women being, but then we kind of went into the trans community as well, and how they're discriminated against. But I like how you used authentic self, and that makes sense. Do you ever feel like you feel different around those who aren't brown? Or
yeah, I mean,
do they, I mean, I'm not quite sure if they act differently or if there's like still some cultural differences between you guys, even though you share being queer.
Yeah, well, I guess see, like I feel like my life, I'm like still, I feel like my life is like an ongoing process of like learning and de-learning messy thoughts. So like for instance, like I said, like I feel like I present very like brown Hispanic characteristic wise, but my upbringing, with like I said before, was very assimilated. I do have like a bit like very cultural experiences, but it wasn't like the main part of my like childhood. Unlike some other like for instance, going back to the like brown spaces that I prefer to be in, like they have like that's how they grew up, but I didn't grow up like that. So where was I going with this? Yeah, just like I think it's a lot of like decolonizing how I grew up, which is again like very like I was raised in a very like again, like very like pro-capitalist, like they want me to go to college, like get a job,
Mhm.
like have kids, and then when I came out as gay, it's kind